Have you ever had an argument with someone with very different beliefs, where you start to feel like rationality and facts really just aren't at play anymore? Sure, there are some people who are just trolling, but there's definitely some set of people for which their arguments are emotional and genuine to them. But there's just no way to even interface. It's almost like there's something foundational going wrong. So we all have our own condensed representations of reality that are lossy and missing information, but we assume our own version is the most valid. In my last video, I talked about disagreements between people acting in good faith and prioritizing facts, but now I want to talk about emotional arguments. How can we go about interfacing with people when we can't use facts? Facts often distract from what is more important and simmering underneath. When rationality and logic fall away, we're left with our morals, what causes us to feel instead of think. I find the best start to understanding these kinds of disagreements is the social psychology theory called moral foundations theory. It was first proposed by psychologists Jonathan Haidt, Craig Joseph, and Jesse Graham, building on the work of cultural anthropologist Richard Schwader. It was popularized in Haidt's book The Righteous Mind, which I'll be drawing from heavily here. Moral foundations theory proposes that morality isn't this singular shared instinct. Our strong internal moral feelings can be clustered into the following categories or foundations: care, harm; fairness, cheating; loyalty, betrayal; authority, subversion; sanctity, degradation; liberty, oppression. For the sake of clarity, I'll be referring to these by the positive attribute. To be clear, these concepts aren't set in stone, but they're instead a useful clustering for humanity's moral reasonings that can be used as a tool for understanding. The authors even admit that this probably is not an exhaustive list and are open to additions, subtractions, or modifications. I think they should add a prize if they accept your change, like a cool t-shirt. The categories can be further grouped into morals favoring the individual, care, fairness, and liberty, and those that favor the collective, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Different cultures and religions place extra weight on some pillars. For example, many religions heavily incorporate rituals, and for countries where these religions are widely practiced, sanctity is a major pillar. In Russia, there's a general desire after the fall of the Soviet Union to project strength, so authority may be a major pillar. Multiple studies were performed using the Moral Foundations questionnaire. In the US, a study found that libertarians favor the Liberty Moral Foundation, liberals favor care and fairness, and conservatives are equally sensitive to all foundations. Another study found that people tend to make arguments from their own moral foundation, but people are more successful if they argue from the foundation of those they're trying to convince. In other words, in order to create a convincing argument, you have to be able to draw from the morals someone believes strongly. Facts aren't going to help you. So if liberals are generally lacking the sanctity foundation, they aren't going to make convincing arguments to conservatives, allowing conservative politicians with a deep understanding of sanctity to prevail in many states on topics like abortion and trans rights. Libertarians clash with conservatives on authority, sanctity, and loyalty. They align on liberty, but I suspect they are also able to align on care and fairness by avoiding historical context when deciding who is deserving of care and fairness. Liberals can take care to a fault by prioritizing it over listening and engaging with those they want to care for, infantilizing them. When we disagree on the facts with someone with mutual respect, we have the tools to address those disagreements. For example, if we really want to have a good faith argument, we can stop talking past each other and dig down into our definitions, context, what we're actually talking about. When we still can't align and end up finding the actual crux of a disagreement, that crux is most likely a moral misalignment. We all have some set of these morals, and communication can break down and turn to hate when they are threatened. In the US, we tend to place discourse itself on a pedestal and engage with each other, despite the fact that discourse is getting less and less productive with time. I suspect the problem is that, due to polarization, it's becoming acceptable on both sides to say the quiet part out loud, to explicitly voice our morals. But then, when we find our morals at odds, we don't even bother engaging in good faith. Discussion turns into a charade with no real effort to convince or be convinced. But I think we can do better. Challenge yourself to understand a foundation that doesn't resonate with you. For me, that was sanctity. But I was able to understand it by thinking about the visceral reaction I had learning that Tolkien actually originally set Lord of the Rings in a previous version of Earth, and then it slowly devolved to our current Earth. The idea that all the magic and culture was lost to get to our current day is, I imagine, how some people feel about losing the character of their neighborhood. To be clear, I don't have to agree with their emotions, but I do need to mentally validate it as true and very motivating to them. Understanding that helps prevent having pointless facts arguments, and may help craft something more convincing to them. A way to maybe bypass the facts misinformation gridlock and get back to good, old-fashioned disagreement.